The following podcast is brought to you by Pro Wrestling Connect, Australia's newest choice for event management and brand development specializing in pro wrestling.
And now, the B Plus Wrestling Podcast. Watch global. Support local. It's the B Plus Wrestling Podcast.
The news.
B plus.
Check it out! Here we go! You wanna mess with us? Cause we're steady on the ground, steady on the ground. You wanna mess with us? Cause we're steady on the ground,
Hello, and welcome to the Wrestling Landscape Podcast. I am your host, Lance Larson. The Wrestling Landscape Podcast is the casual wrestling podcast, the informal wrestling podcast, and on today's episode, I am once again drinking water. Too much caffeine already today, too early for alcohol, so just busting out the H2O. I have completely killed my gimmick with having something to drink on every episode. I've had far too many episodes with a beverage that has no substance, whether it be caffeine or alcohol, or really even sugar. Anyway, on today's episode, we are going to be talking Impact Slammiversary. We are going to be talking about last week's Ring of Honor TV and last week's MLW Kings of the Coliseum episode. But the main thing I want to talk about today, after we cover those things, is the business trends of each of those companies and what it means for the middle-class wrestling scene in the United States. So, for those of you that aren't longtime listeners, when I talk about the middle-class wrestling scene here in the U.S., I view the wrestling landscape, hence the title, in the States where I live as such. WWE and AEW are the big two in terms of revenue and exposure. Now, listen, here in July 2019, I know AEW is not number 2 in the country in terms of revenue, and they're not number 2 in the country in terms of exposure. However, the second their debut episode starts in October on TNT, that changes. And for sure by 2020, that revenue switches. So, almost automatically, they're going to jump to number 2 as soon as their company gets going. So I'm not going to deal with the bullshit of, well, right now they're technically number 4, like bullshit. They're going to be number 2, if not by the start of their TV show, for sure by January 2020. Like, they're number 2. They're going to be number 2. Deal with it. Like, if you don't get that they're going to be the number 2 country in the U.S., like, I don't know what to tell you. That's just the way it's going to be. Okay? Now, listen, a year from now, July 2020, that might not be the case. If they royally shit the bed, that might not be the case. But those first few months, there's going to be enough interest, enough people buying tickets, enough people tuning in, that they're just going to be there. So, if you don't see that, like, I don't know what to tell you. That might change quickly, but at least when it starts, that's just the way it's going to be. Especially when we look at the competition here for number 2 in the US. Like, that's, especially then it makes it evident. So, that's just hard to view that. Then, on the step below that, we have what I call the middle class. So, for me, that would include New Japan Pro Wrestling, Ring of Honor, Impact, MLW, NWA, and WOW. The reason why those constitute the middle class, to me, is because they all have national TV. Now, none of them are on a network. Some of them are in better channels than others. But none of them have just regional TV. You know, like Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, I don't include on here because they just have regional TV. Now, yeah, they're free on Fight, but on TV, they're just local. So, those are the companies that you can have on TV in any part of the country. So that's why I place them there, because of that TV exposure. And really because I can't imagine any of those companies making less than the indies, with maybe an exception or two, and maybe depending on what you qualify as an indie or not. Because the indies I kind of put as the class below that, just because in terms of exposure. Now, quality has nothing to do with where I'm ranking these. That's not what I'm saying. Quality can affect revenue and exposure, but I'm ranking them on revenue and exposure. So sometimes quality affects revenue and exposure, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does to more or less a degree. But when I'm ranking them, please keep in mind I'm not talking about quality of product. I'm talking about revenue, I'm talking about exposure. So, but we'll get to that after we go over some of the action this past week, including Impact Slammiversary, which I'm not going to go match by match, but I do have some general thoughts on it. I thought Impact Slammiversary was the third best show to happen in America this year. I think Double or Nothing was the best show to happen in the States. I think G1 Climax 29 Night 1 that took place in Dallas the night before was the second best show to happen in the country this year. And I think Slammiversary was third. Like, I really think it was that good, top to bottom. Nothing on this show sucked. There was a match that I thought was fine, and maybe slightly above fine, that got the gentleman's 3 from me, and that was Moose and RVD. But even in that match, Moose worked his fucking ass off and took some big-ass bumps, while he's working for, however the hell old RVD is. So this match as a whole, this show as a whole, I thought was very, very good. Top to bottom, nothing sucked. Now, I think I would put Fyter Fest at number 4, and I'd have to think long and hard about what I thought number 5 was. If anyone out there listening strongly disagrees, please DM me. Because I legitimately think this was the third best show to happen in America in 2019. If there is something I'm completely forgetting, please let me know. But I haven't heard any kind of, super buzz around a PWG show this year yet. I mean, the card for, 16, I think, is that next show before Bola? That looks pretty crazy. And obviously the Bola shows look pretty nuts. So I'm not saying this is going to stick for the end of the year, but at this halfway point, this is probably the third best show to happen in the USA. So I loved this show. The 2 openers were fun, spot fest, with a tons of cool moves. Totally got me into it. The Eddie Edwards and Killer Cross was a fun brawl. Had some psychology issues, but still enjoyed it. Talked about Moose and RVD. The Knockouts Monsters Ball, I did not expect that match to be as good as it was. That drew me in so much. I'm glad Ty retained, by the way. Johnny Impact and Rich Swann was very good, solid. Cage and Elgin felt kick-ass. Felt like a big-time title match. Really enjoyed that. And now I'll talk about some of the booking as we go into the post-match of Cage Elgin and the main event. So, I enjoyed almost all of the action on the show. So I had some critiques on some of the psychology, but honestly, small nitpicks. Not worth bringing them up on a general overview like this. Cage Elgin match was great. I liked the finish a lot because I liked Cage retaining, but it also protected Elgin. Now, Rhino coming in. I don't know if Callis is just getting a payday for one of his friends. I don't know what kind of push Rhino will get in this company. I hope he is just there to have a feud with Elgin, put him over, and leave. But no one knows at this point. Except for the people involved, obviously. But I can't believe that money is being wasted on him in a wrestling environment this rich. There is an insane amount of talent around the world that remains unsigned. And they are spending money on Rhino. Rhino. Who even at his peak was only so good. He was good. He was never great. And at his age, the money and the TV time that they are going to use on him that could be used on a younger talent is being wasted. This blows my motherfucking goddamn mind. Listen, even if Rhino is only here for one TV taping, that's a waste of money and TV time. Even if he just comes in, has like a 3-week feud with Elgin, job's clean, and is gone, that's still a fucking waste. The money used on Rhino could have been used on Chris Statlander, Jessica Troy, Carlos Romo, Justin Dynamite, Justin Wilde, The Onslaught, Trexas and Statement for your tag team division. But no, it's used on Rhino. Like, someone at Impact literally just needs to watch Uncharted Territory once a week and just be like, oh, let's sign him. Oh, let's sign her. Because I listed a lot of international names. Not all, but some. But if you want to find folks closer to home, there's a lot of fucking American indie wrestlers that are unsigned that are on Uncharted Territory every single fucking week. And they would be way more valuable to Impact than motherfucking Rhino. Good God, all fucking mighty. Has no one learned a goddamn fucking thing from WCW? If you don't make new stars, you die. Impact is still a ways away from that. This one decision to bring Rhino in is not going to kill the company, obviously. I'm not dumb. I get that. But the trend they have shown of bringing back ECW and WCW guys wasting resources like money and TV time that could be spent on future motherfucking stars blows my mind. Read The Death of WCW by Artie Reynolds and Brian Alvarez. Read any kind of historical coverage of WCW at the time, of its last 3 years. I cannot wrap my mind around this. I hope it's honestly, I hope it's just Callis being a good guy and helping his buddy out with a paycheck. Because if they legitimately think this is a smart booking decision, they are idiots. Because it's not. Now the main event. Good match. Don't want to get into the details of what I thought was, strong or not strong about it. But Sami Callihan going over. First of all, this match really did elevate Tessa, and it also elevated Sami, in my opinion. Them having a non-title match in the main event of a pay-per-view of a company that doesn't have a lot of pay-per-views is kind of a big deal. I thought it made both of them feel more like stars than they were before. So, one, I'm thrilled Impact sees Blanchard in that arena, because she absolutely deserves to be. She should be the face of the company. Not the face of the women wrestlers of the company, the face of the company. And I understand her contract isn't terribly long, but firstly, they should do whatever the fuck they need to do to sign her on for as long as possible. And secondly, even if they can't, utilize her while they have her. Now, her losing to Callihan. I saw some tweets, particularly from Last Word on Pro Wrestling, who said it's like the Rocky movies. Rocky didn't win in the first Rocky, but it made his win in Rocky 2 that much better. In this match, I don't think Blanchard losing elevated her, nor makes the comeback win any more important. I think it relegates her to being too close to average. Sami Callihan is not a top guy on Impact. So her losing to Sami just because he's a man does not elevate her in the loss. She's not losing to a top guy here. Now, listen. If this feud continues, and the way it pays off is amazing, I will gladly say I was wrong, and I was an idiot, and they booked it well, and Blanchard came out such a bigger star at the end of it that it was smart. I don't see that happening. Because even if they have a rematch, even if they have 2 rematches, and Blanchard wins them both, I still see this as a missed opportunity for Tessa to have a big win in the main event of a pay-per-view in a company that doesn't have a lot of pay-per-views. So that's a special thing. I do not like this call. Now, I was going to say to save the feud. The feud doesn't need to be saved. It's still a hot feud. It's still a good feud. I just don't think Blanchard's going to come out the other side as over as they need her to be. Because she should be the focus of this feud. Like, Sammy should be there to get Blanchard over. Blanchard is much more the future of this company than Callahan is. By far. So, I would think they need to have some kind of rematch on TV. That Tessa wins, and Sammy's comes back with, well, you couldn't beat me if I was completely cut loose, so why don't we have, Monsters Ball, no DQ, cage match, whatever the fuck, some kind of stip match, some kind of brutal stip match that's super violent, and honestly even bloody, that Tessa comes out on top, looking like a motherfucking killer. To me, that'd be the best way to go with this feud from here on out, if you're not going to give Tessa the win here. But we'll see. I would love to be wrong that her losing here was a bad idea. 6 months from now, I would love to look back and be like, oh my god, they were brilliant with that Callahan-Blanchard feud. Her losing that first match was such a good call. I hope I'm wrong. But to me, her losing here doesn't make her comeback win any more special. To me, she needs to get 2 wins over him after this. She needs a win of the feud. Not a 50-50 feud. She needs to win the feud, and in a violent, brutal fashion. In my opinion. And that's the best way to go from here. If that happens, depending on how well it's executed, I may look back and be like, I was wrong. But even if that is what happens, if it's not executed, excellently, I might still look back and be like, nope, she should have beaten Sammy. So we'll see. Those are my very general thoughts on Slammiversary. There is a full show review up on the B Plus podcast on the Impact Zone, which came out a little bit ago. So you can go check that out if you want a full match-by-match review. Okay, let's briefly talk about Ring of Honor TV this week. There were 3 matches. Not going to talk about the first 2. In the main event, it was Matt Taven retaining the Ring of Honor World title over Tracy Williams. So, listen. Emily and Harley of the Pro Wrestling Torch Daily Cast Talking Honor, and Joe Lanza and Rich Craich of the Voices of Wrestling flagship both talked about how the taping schedule for Ring of Honor hurts them. And how because this world title defense was taped before Best in the World, no one really cares about it coming afterwards, and like things like that. They didn't talk about this match in particular. I mean, Emily and Harley did. But I was like, no, I disagree with that. Like, it's just the way they do business. Taping it out of order doesn't affect things. If you're smart about it, it's fine. But guys, there was a Ring of Honor world title defense last week. And who talked about it? Who on the wrestling Twitterverse or any other social media did you see talking about this match? There was next to no buzz for it. And it hit me. It was like, you know what? They're right! Like, the taping schedule for Ring of Honor does hurt it. Because they had a good world title match. It was good, not great. It was good. No one gave a shit. So it's a good match. Matt Taven retained, as obviously you would expect, because it was taped before Best in the World. And so that was just my brief thoughts on the Ring of Honor TV this week. MLW Fusion, Kings of the Coliseum, July the 6th. This was their live special. They taped the next few episodes thereafter. This was in Cicero Stadium in Chicago. 2 title matches on this night. Alexander Hammerstone had an open challenge. He defeated Cotto Brazil. I don't know why I said Cato. Cotto Brazil to retain the openweight title. This was less a title defense and more to just get Hammerstone over, which it did. Then in the main event, we had Filthy Tom Lawler defending his heavyweight championship against Jacob Fatu. This match was good, not great. Fatu is excellent, by the way, especially in the kind of heel that he plays. He is very good. And Fatu won! Fatu is your new MLW heavyweight champion, which is very interesting to me. And I look forward to seeing how it goes. Booking-wise, I get it. Fatu's very good. Contra Unit's hot right now. But I feel like Lawler had such a long chase of low-key that I don't know he had a long enough title reign thereafter for it to mean something. So I'm curious if this will hurt Tom. Now, they have a rematch for the title coming up. To be honest, it wouldn't surprise me either way who won. So I guess I would have to wait for a comment on Lawler's title reign to see what happens there. Because if this is just to heat up the rematch, I guess I wouldn't be against that, even though it's kind of hot potatoing the title a little too much than I prefer. In America, it happens just a bit more, so it's not, deathly or anything. So I'll wait for the rematch to have my full thoughts on the booking of the heavyweight title in MLW. But solid match. Fatu's your new MLW heavyweight champion. So those are the things going on the shows for these three companies.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
This month we are sponsored by Grapple, a fantastic new wrestling app available on iOS and Google Play completely for free, where you can rate all the matches that you watch in WWE, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all across the world, and we are even getting Australian wrestling involved in the Grapple app rating system as well, starting with PWA Pro Wrestling Australia. Their Green Label event from the other week is up there. The Black Label event, All Eyes on Troy, is up there. And the last 2 years of events, at least, are up on Grapple right now for you to rate so that people can get around our Aussie wrestling and see that we are just as good as anywhere else in the world. Basically, Grapple is a Rotten Tomatoes for wrestling. Now we all get a say. It is the democratization of match rating systems for pro wrestling. It's amazing. So I get a say, you get a say. You can follow me on there at Greg Unchained. You can follow Big Boy Mikey at B+_Big Boy. At Mr. Mysterious is on there. At Danders is on there. At Jay is on there. We're all on there rating the matches that we watch. So follow us. We'll follow you back. Let's build this community and get as many Australian wrestling fans onto the Grapple app as we can. You can download it right now. It has over 30,000 matches on there going back to 1985, 15 promotions around the world. There's so much to do on the Grapple app. It's a great little community, so get around it. It's Grapple, GRAPPL.co, and it's for free on App Store and Google Play. Get around it. Hey everyone, just want to take a second to tell you about one of our new sponsors, Outbreak Nutrition. Outbreak Nutrition are creating supplements for survival, sharper minds, quicker reflexes, all the energy you need to take your performance to the next level, whether that be on the field, in the gym, on the gaming field. That's right, they have specifically designed gaming supplements as well to help you focus on those late night sessions. They even sell coffee, you guys, at Outbreak Nutrition. You can get coffee pods, you can get coffee beans, you can get supplements for the bedroom as well if you want to enhance your performance there. These are performance enhancing supplements for every aspect of your life, specifically designed by gamers, for gamers, to stay fit and healthy in the gym, to stay sharp and focused on the game, and to dominate in all areas of life. So check out OutbreakNutrition.com, and for being a listener of our podcast, they will give you 10% off your order when you enter the code B+. That is BPLUS at checkout. So make sure, if you want to stay on top of your game, if you want to take your performance to the next level, OutbreakNutrition.com, enter the code B+ at checkout. Hey guys, just a reminder, if you want to hear all of these wonderful B+ podcast episodes completely ad-free, make sure you head over to Patreon or Podbean, where we are the featured podcast this week. You can subscribe for as little as $1 a month up to $10 a month, where anything you want to help us with, it really helps out. It's going to help us grow the site. It's going to help us redesign some things, and everything that we get through this and through the advertising as well is all going straight back into the podcast so that we can get Aussie Graps out there for the rest of the world to hear about, for the rest of the world to see, so we can grow this mission of watch global, support local, and build indie wrestling. So if you want to be a part of that and get some really cool rewards like call-in shows, bonus episodes, ad-free like I mentioned, then head over to patreon.com/theb+ and subscribe today.
I want to talk about some attendance numbers and where I think these three companies are headed. Let's look at Ring of Honor first. Okay. Their anniversary show which happens every March. Obviously, it's an anniversary show. In 2018, drew about 900 fans to a sellout. Now, in March 2019, that same anniversary show also drew 900 fans to a sellout. So, based on that metric, we can look at Ring of Honor business, at least ticket drawing business, and say in 2018 and 2019, in the month of March, their business was at least equitable. Now, I don't know the demand above the sellout. Like, I don't know if in 2018, there was 1,000 people that wanted tickets that didn't get tickets. And in 2019, there's 50 people that wanted tickets that didn't get tickets. But they both sold out with 900 people. So we can at least, for argument's purposes, say that in March of both years, last year and this year, their business was fairly the same. Or at least comparable. Now, in April of both years, they did big business. If you remember, Supercard of Honor in 2018 on WrestleMania weekend was the big Kenny Omega-Cody Rhodes match, which drew very, very well. If I remember correctly, it was the biggest house in Ring of Honor history. This past April, they had the G1 Supercard, which was the joint show with New Japan and MSG. Obviously, those shows are the outliers when it comes to Ring of Honor's business. And, if I can share my opinion on this, it was the New Japan stars that drew the big houses on both of those shows. You can disagree with me on that. That's fine. I don't have any hard proof for that. That is just the belief I am under. However, either way, both those were big shows WrestleMania weekend with help from another company. So those are kind of outliers. And so I'm not going to say, they drew 6,500 in April of 2018, but, 16,000 in April of 2019, big growth. No, different circumstance. Obviously, being in the MSG was a big draw, so those are outliers that aren't really going to help us view the business. However, what I think is important to look at with Ring of Honor is the pay-per-views, the next pay-per-views that followed those big April shows on WrestleMania weekend. So, Best in the World, June 2018. 2 months after that big Supercard of Honor, that had Kenny Omega versus Cody Rhodes, that drew 6,500 on WrestleMania weekend. This Best in the World, June 2018, drew 2,500 fans. It's the first pay-per-view after that show. It's a good number, 2,500. Best in the World, June 2019. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whenever that was. Now remember, this is Ring of Honor's first pay-per-view show after the G1 Supercard. Best in the World 2019 drew 1,200 fans. 1 year ago, Best in the World, June 2018, drew 2,500. They drew less than half this year for Best in the World in the same fucking city. So it's not like they went to a weaker market, they went back to Baltimore. But they drew half the fucking fans. I think G1 Supercard has hurt Ring of Honor's business more than anyone is willing to admit. I think because business dipped some after Cody and the Bucks left, that people are just kind of expecting, it's going to be a down year, a little bit, but it's not going to kill them. That, people have kind of ignored the harm that G1 Supercard has done. This is the first show after that debacle that was MSG for Ring of Honor, and they drew less than half the people they drew in the same city at the same show last year. Ring of Honor's shit booking at MSG this year has hurt their business. Period. I look at the attendance numbers from Best in the World last year and this year, and I don't know how else to read that information. Yes, losing the Bucks and Cody Rhodes hurt. But drawing less than half of what you drew last year, coming off a show that was generally regarded as shit for Ring of Honor, but great for New Japan, I can't help but read into that some of their booking decisions in Madison Square Garden has hurt this company. More than some people are willing to admit, and more than I've really heard people talking about. Maybe I'm listening to the wrong wrestling news sources. But, when Cody and the Bucks left, when the Elite left, Hangman Page included, the folks at Voices of Wrestling and Wrestling Observer Newsletter both commented on how business had dipped. But I think it has dipped at a faster pace since G1 Supercard. At least based on this best in the world attendance number. That's the only way I know how to read that. Let's look at some Impact numbers. Slammiversary, July 2018. Remember, they had recently returned to pay-per-view at that point. They drew 1,000 fans for Slammiversary last year. And this year, they comparably drew approximately 1,000 fans. Now, if you remember, Slammiversary last year was kind of the show that got really good reviews. And for some reason, after all these really good views of Slammiversary, as noted by the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, their business started to tank. They started getting less viewers, and people just don't know what happened, because Slammiversary was a well-regarded show. But more and more people just stopped watching Impact, which was bizarre. And then they moved to the Friday time slot, and they moved to Pursuit, and it's just like, oh, fuck. So it's kind of all downhill from them. So, on one level, it's impressive that Impact was able to draw 1,000 folks. It might have been smart to do it the night after G1, because I have heard of a few folks that did do both, so I wonder if that was a bit of a draw. But good for them on drawing both. And this show, from everything that I've seen, Slammiversary 2019, is getting good reviews. So if they're able to maintain that pay-per-view attendance a year later, when ratings have tanked because of moving nights, moving stations, things like that, their creative has been somewhat up and down over the last year, but I think most people that have followed the product would say that it's been generally good. And, to be honest, they've really had kick-ass pay-per-views. Like, especially in 2019, the 3 pay-per-views they've had so far have been excellent. I've enjoyed every single one. This was my favorite one of the 3, but I think all of them have been good. So if they come out with more buzz, I think there's a chance for Impact to grow. Especially if, as first reported by Voices of Wrestling and confirmed by the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, I want to make sure I'm citing my sources, they are talking to Access, and if that does lead to a TV deal with Access TV, that'll be a much better station for them, and hopefully they'll be able to draw more viewers. I think it is reasonable to expect Impact's business to grow over the next year. I think that's where they're trending. Even though the attendance number is the exact same for the same show last year, I think they're going to trend up. Because of the probable move in TV stations, and because I think they're getting good internet buzz, which I used to not really hold too much value in, internet buzz. But AEW has definitely turned my mind around on that. That company was literally born out of internet buzz. So don't fucking tell me internet buzz doesn't mean shit. Because sometimes it does. So I think between those two things, Impact, it is reasonable to expect Impact to be trending upwards in the next year. At least when it comes to viewers and attendance. So I can't guarantee that, obviously. I don't have any hard facts to indicate that. That's just how I view Impact's situation here. Now, MLW. I tried so hard to look for an attendance figure for MLW from this past Saturday night in Chicago. No one said a thing about it. The Observer hasn't come out yet. I've waited for it all day because he at least has a number in there. I found one article that said it was sold out. I don't believe that. It just sounds like something that was written or was fed to them by someone that works for MLW or whatever the fuck. That does not sound like a real thing. Here's the deal though. It did look very full. Cicero Stadium, when set up for football, can hold about 6,000 people. Obviously for wrestling it can't. But, I mean, if it was set up for 2,000, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that they got 1,200 to 1,500. So, we will go with 1,000 plus as the working number for MLW from this past Saturday. Watch the attendance come out and it like totally fucks up what I'm about to say. I feel like an idiot, but that's okay. Last year, at the July 19th TV taping for MLW, they drew 947 fans. So if they drew 1,000 plus, which I really expect they did, to be honest, that is a slight trend upward. Now, depending on how much that plus is over 1,000, would indicate how much of a trend that is. Because if it's like 1,000 even, 53 people isn't, that's almost not even a trend up. That's just like a staying steady, But if it's several hundred over 1,000, percentage-wise, that's a significant trend up. Furthermore, we have every indication from beIN Sports and how they treat MLW that MLW is doing good ratings, is drawing good enough viewers, at least for the channel. Like Dave Meltzer pointed out, they had an MLW marathon one day, which obviously beIN Sports is not going to give them unless they felt like it would do okay, and they're happy with MLW. They give them lots of promotion. MLW just announced its first pay-per-view coming up this fall. There is every indication to believe that MLW is trending upward. Furthermore, I believe it was 411mania.com had a really interesting article on MLW attendance, where in 2018, their average attendance was 717 folks, but if you just take the average attendance of the last 6 months of 2018, it was over 900, which means all of the low numbers that were bringing the average down were in the first half of the year, which means business grew as the year went along. And so if business grew as 2018 went along, and we're already seeing growth year to year, we have every indication to believe that MLW is trending upwards. Now, I also want to credit, I know I'm name dropping a lot of different wrestling podcasts and websites and other, but it's just like, this isn't my data, so I want to cite my sources. And the two guys at Elite Major Impact podcast on the PW Torch Daily Cast have influenced my thinking in this and a lot too. So props to those guys. So we have every indication that MLW is trending upward. So, what does this mean for where these companies rank in the grand scheme of U.S. wrestling? And what does it mean for the middle class of U.S. wrestling as a whole? Okay, with all of this said, I still think New Japan Pro Wrestling is the number 3 wrestling company to American fans. I think they can draw more than Ring of Honor, more than Impact, more than MLW. They had over 4,000 paid. I believe it was 4,200 paid for the G1 on Saturday. There's about 5,000 in the building. Ring of Honor can't do that. Impact can't do that. MLW can't do that. Now, I know New Japan is not here as nearly as often, but they are here more often than people think. They run smaller tours. They're doing that Super J Cup again coming up. New Japan is here a little more often than people think. And I think they could several times a year draw 3,000 to 6,000 people to a show here in the States. Ring of Honor can't do that. Even for their pay-per-views. So I still place New Japan as the top of the middle class, as the number 3 promotion to American wrestling fans. Number 4, currently, is still Ring of Honor, if we're looking at sheer drawing power. However, to me, that is very close to changing. And I personally believe, by the end of 2019, Major League Wrestling will be the number 4 promotion in the United States of America. I think they're going to jump over Ring of Honor. I really, really do. Now, NWA, I included in the middle class really only because they have that TV exposure from Ring of Honor. I don't know what major role they will play going forward. I know Billy Corgan has come out and said he has a 20-year plan for the NWA. What that means, how that'll affect the landscape, I don't know. He has only revealed so much of that plan. But, if you think about it, NWA is certainly in a better spot now than it was 5 years ago. So they're at least showing some growth. I think it would take a small miracle for them to be a major player in U.S. wrestling. But they can certainly have a spot. Especially if they're partnering with Ring of Honor, which gives them a much bigger spotlight than they'd have on themselves. Now, Impact is a tough one to place, because I don't really know how much they're going to trend up, or really even if they will. Impact is such a tough promotion to think about. I don't know how much the buzz will mean. If they do end up moving TV stations, I don't know how much that will mean. It's so weird to talk about. Impact could be the number 4 promotion in the company in a year. They could also not exist in a year. Like, I could see both of those things happening. And I really don't even know what to predict. And lastly, the only other company I really haven't talked about is WOW. Now, Access TV does not release ratings, so I can't really say how much they're drawing, but they did do good enough ratings to get renewed for Season 2 on Access TV. And if Impact does indeed move over to Access TV, Access will have 2 shows that Tessa Blanchard is the face of, WOW and Impact. And she'll probably just become the face of wrestling on that channel, making her a megastar. I shouldn't say megastar. Access is only so big of a channel. But it would make her a top prospect for both WWE and AEW, which I'm sure she is already. But it would elevate her star status, I think. Now, WOW, I think, is number 8 of the 8 companies on that middle class list. NWA is above them only because of the Ring of Honor exposure. If for whatever reason that partnership dissolves, NWA is either last on this list or I'm not even including in the middle class of US wrestling. So, hopefully WOW does well. I would like to see them gain traction. I do not have access to that channel. We'll see if I do this fall. There's some things that could work out, but we'll see. We'll see. So I hope they do well. I would love for an all-women's company to do well in this country. I think that'd be good for professional wrestling. So we'll have to wait and see with WoW. And remember, all of these trends I've talked about with Ring of Honor and Impact and MLW, again, these are just trends. And with Impact, it was just a prediction that they were going to trend upward. And trends change all the time. Look at Dragon Gate. It was not that long ago that they were trending down in business, and trending down hard. They're not anymore. Partly is because of PAC, as noted by Voices of Wrestling. So trends can change. Dragon Gate turned it around. These companies might too. Ring of Honor might figure some shit out and be a really hot US promotion by the end of the year. We don't know. But when all is said and done, when I'm looking at the US wrestling landscape and I'm ranking these companies in terms of revenue and exposure, I think by New Year's Eve 2019, this is where I see the US landscape. Remember, not in terms of quality, I'm ranking these in terms of revenue and exposure. Number 1, WWE. Absolute no contest. If you disagree, I don't know what to tell you. Number 2, AEW. Number 3, New Japan. Number 4, MLW. I do think they'll hop over Ring of Honor. Number 5, Ring of Honor. I don't think Impact will jump Ring of Honor. So at number 6, I put Impact. At number 7, NWA. And number 8, WOW. So that's where I see the business of Ring of Honor, Impact, and MLW. That's where I see the middle class of US Pro Wrestling going. I will have a much more expanded episode discussing US wrestling business the first week of September, in which I will talk extensively about WWE and AEW's TV deals, what I think that means for this country in terms of a possible wrestling boom. I will again re-examine the middle class. We'll have some new info on that, because New Japan will be running more dates in the US, so we'll be able to look at some figures there and maybe to either confirm or deny their spot at number 3. And we'll just have more data to base that on. But I do plan on doing a State of the Union episode come the first week of September, looking at these 8 companies, who stands where, what's going to change, and what it means for the wrestling business as a whole. So thank you so much for listening to this episode where I'm looking at these companies and their business metrics. This is the kind of stuff I enjoy talking about. This is the kind of stuff I enjoy making predictions on. So I appreciate you giving it a listen. Anyways, this has been the Wrestling Landscape Podcast. Thanks again for listening, and take care.